It was as simple as could be. Win and get in the postseason, and that's exactly what the Redskins did, and they didn't just win. They were dominant against the Cowboys. 27-6 the final, and Washington has won 4 straight and will meet Seattle Saturday night in the postseason. Hey, how are you, folks? Jason Horowitz alongside NFL.com's Pat Kirwan and CBS Sports' Charley Casserly. One last week with you here on the Subway NFL postgame show, and guys, we'll get to Dallas in a sec because they played the starters, at least for the first half. They weren't very good. They weren't good in the second half either. We'll get to that in a sec. But with Washington, great story. Obviously, the death of Sean Taylor and the turnaround, and they did it with Todd Collins. Charlie, 4 straight victories. He was there for all of them. What has been the biggest difference for Washington?
Well, I think it starts with Todd Collins. You know, Al Saunders, the offensive coordinator, had Todd Collins in Kansas City. I've talked to Al Saunders for a number of years here about Todd Collins. He's never wavered. He always felt he could be a productive quarterback in the National Football League. Now, what he's been able to do is, number one, don't make the big mistake. Don't turn it over. Don't beat yourself. But what it seems to me they're able to do, now that they got Moss healthy, Portis back in the lineup, is he can run his whole offense. Al Saunders is a master at getting people open in the passing game. What he has to have is a quarterback that's smart, that's accurate, and get the ball out quick on timing. That's what Todd Collins is doing. That's why the offense is expanded. That's why they look more like a professional passing offensive football team right now.
And that's why you explained earlier in the week that there's no thought of going back to Jason Campbell at all for the playoffs because Todd Collins got them there. You talked about Santana Moss, 8 catches, 115 yards and a touchdown. Clinton Portis, over 100 yards on the ground in this game. First guy all season to rush for 100 yards against this Cowboys defense. Meanwhile, the Redskins defense, Pat, was dominant. They held the Cowboys to their fewest rushing yards in team history. One rushing yard for the Dallas Cowboys. This front four has been phenomenal.
Yeah, they've played very well. I mean, what it does is provoke a lot more questions about Dallas, especially in the first half when Romo was playing. And Mr. Barber, their big-time running back, had, I think, minus 6 yards rushing in the game. Where I think it's intriguing to me is we got a glimpse of what the Dallas offense might look like, at least in the first half, without T.O. on the field. So you don't have a receiver you have to double cover. For the first time, you can put a safety down and think about taking care of that running game a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how Dallas plays and if they get T.O. back in time. Otherwise, they're going to have a different chemistry on offense.
And that was the biggest difference in the first game when Dallas won at home against Washington.
Scored all 4 touchdowns.
4 touchdowns, all for T.O. A huge game, obviously not there. Now let's focus this on the playoffs because, truthfully, they haven't played a very good football the last 3 weeks. Maybe you could say the last 4 weeks, ever since Charlie made this point earlier in the day, ever since that victory against Green Bay. This Dallas Cowboys team has not been a very good football team. Certainly has not looked like the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Well, they get a chance to regroup now, all right? So they're not going to play for a week, and if they get T.O. back on the field, you know, this is a very good football team. They demonstrated that. But without him, I'm not so sure they're going to be as threatening to everybody, and they'll have some challenges in the playoffs.
Charlie, obviously we don't know who Dallas plays. That's yet to be determined, obviously, with the wild card. We know that Washington plays at Seattle next Saturday. It's a short week. But because Seattle played on the East Coast, that works out. That's the best way to do it, right?
Yeah, I think it's probably the fairest situation here because both teams play here, play on Sunday, have to play on Saturday. And you're right, it might balance up the trip a little bit. I think it's an advantage to Seattle, though, because their trip is today, and they get a clean week at home. But, hey, they won the division. That's why they should have the advantage.
As for how they match up, Washington and Seattle, they played each other in the 2005 postseason. Seattle obviously had a bye. They went on to the Super Bowl, losing to the Steelers. They go again here. Does Washington match up better to this Seattle team than that one?
It might be because I don't think Seattle's as good as they were back then. I think the Redskins are a better football team. Right now, the Redskins have momentum. That's a great thing to go into the playoffs. But you know what? You don't have a dominant team really right now in the NFC. I think this thing is wide open. I think anybody could win it. Washington is playing with a lot of confidence right now. They're a balanced offensive football team. Seattle's not a balanced offensive football team. They're a one-dimensional team. Greg Williams is a master at taking away what you do best. I think this is a great matchup. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Redskins pull the upset.
Would you be surprised?
I wouldn't be surprised because Collins hasn't even thrown an interception in this 4-game run of his. But on the other side, because of the death of Sean Taylor and the loss of Carlos Rudge, you've got some issues in the secondary. You've got a quarterback who's thrown the most touchdowns he's thrown in his career, so he's going to go after that secondary and try to find some cracks.
And Matt Hasselbeck just a few yards short of 4,000 this season as well. They did not get that, and they lost today at Atlanta. All right, folks, that is the playoffs. We'll break it down all week long on CBSSports.com. And for more on this game between Dallas and Washington or the rest of the playoff situation, be sure to stay with CBSSports.com and watch everything else on the CBS Audience Network. For Pat and Charlie, I'm Jason Horowitz. Have a very happy New Year. Take care.